Well, what do you think about James Clapper, coming out now and talking about the fact that, he's very unhappy? He says, after I left government service, I had my own decision to make. I had not planned to write anything, but after experiencing the election and the behavior by and the impact of the Trump administration, I changed my mind.
Well, I think he has a personal antipathy toward Donald Trump, shared widely among certain intelligence professionals. Certainly, John Brennan has that feeling, and one can imagine certainly that James Comey does as well. So, yeah, there's that motivation. But I think you have to really look carefully at what Clapper has said. He is now claiming, as you mentioned to Eric Swalwell, that the Russians were decisive in the election. Mm-hmm. I worry about a man who was once considered a serious intelligence analyst reaching that conclusion, because all the deep dives that have been done into what the Russians did during the election have indicated, yeah, they tried, but what they spent and what they did was utterly dwarfed by all the other efforts, all the other spending, all the other advertising, all the other messaging, all the other campaigning that was done on both sides of that campaign. And it seems unbelievable that someone could come to the conclusion that what the Russians did, not as big as they wanted it to be, perhaps, but they thought was big, but it was actually minuscule.
Yeah,
that could have made the difference. It's just not plausible.
They've charged 13 Russians with a campaign to open up lots of different accounts, to get on social media, which is something that I think is pretty clear they wanted to influence. Let's take a look at another piece of the book by James Clapper, another quote from the book, and put it on the screen. It says, "Of course, the Russian effort affected the outcome, surprising even themselves. They swung the election to a Trump win. To conclude otherwise stretches logic, common sense, and credulity to the breaking point. Less than 80,000 votes in 3 key states swung the election. I have no doubt," he goes on to say, "that more votes than that were influenced by this massive effort by the Russians." So somehow he's been able to get into the head of those 80,000 voters, and he says even more than that, really, and he knows that that's why they voted the way they did.
The problem with saying something like that is that first of all, he presents no evidence. He just calls it massive. He presents no evidence. He ought to know how utterly vast the undertakings are in a presidential campaign. And you can't ever know for sure what is going on the minds of countless voters as they make up their minds how to vote. It's just not a circumstance. Now, look, if there had been some huge issue involving Russia that had been central to the campaign and had been argued throughout, and the Russians had pulled some kind of an intelligence stunt where they made it appear that the facts were one way and in fact the facts were the other, you could kind of make that argument, but not on this evidence. That's disturbingly silly. Yeah,
and it's interesting to me because in the interviews that he's doing, he'll lay this out and say, well, I know this now, and, I'm definite about it, I'm certain about it. But then when asked how he really doesn't have anything to substantiate it other than the number of, Twitter accounts that were opened and the like. But then when asked how he says Putin was absolutely involved. When asked about that, he says, oh, that's classified. I can't get into that.
Well, yeah, that's right. And think about it this, Martha. He even says in the course of the things you've cited there that something about how a lot of the messages that were coming out of the Trump campaign were the ones that the Russians were promoting, right?
Right.
So how in the world would you ever be able to tell which of those messages, if they're mirrored by the Trump campaign and all of its multiple utterances, are the ones that people believed and not the ones by the Russians, or vice versa? It's just an imponderable. I mean, it's an extravagant claim, one well beyond the knowledge of an intelligence officer, and he basically cites no evidence for it. This is a man, remember, Martha, who has had his trouble shaking hands with the truth in the past, as has been noted.
As has been noted, interestingly, on The View, going back and forth, he said, I was talking about something else, but he didn't actually explain what the other thing he was talking about was.
Well, not only that, Martha, the question that Ron Wyden asked him about spying on Americans and surveillance was very broad, very general. It spoke of no particular program at all. Yeah. So when he says he's speaking about another program, what other program? No program was being mentioned. He was asked a broad-based question, and his answer was absolutely false.
And he said, not wittingly or unwittingly. So absolutely not was his answer.
That was his answer.
Brit, thank you very much. Great to see you tonight.
Thank you.